Hey everybody, so this is going to be our final assignment, and this is going to be an extra credit assignment, which is going to really be just a modified version of assignment 10. So the same logic in main, except the only difference now is that we're going to use a parallel array to not parallel array, a struct array to store all of our data. So it's going to be a struct array sort of replacement instead of using the overcomplicated parallel array version. So basically, here's going to be our struct. It's going to be called venue type. And each venue will have a name, it'll have an available seats, and it's going to have a seat cost array. So basically, available seats is going to store a true or false. True meaning that a seat is available, and false means not available. And then seat cost is going to be just the cost of a particular seat at this particular venue. And of course, looking at the structures needed below, we can see that we're going to have an array of venue types, which I call it shows. So each show will have a name, a list of seats, which we can sort of store the cost of each seat, and also be able to determine if that seat is available for purchasing. So yeah, this is basically the setup. So you can see the code here shows I.name is going to access a name field of one of the venue types and so forth. So this paragraph right here gives you a good idea of what's really the essence of how this is all going to work. So instead of having to use a parallel array structure and then have to, how shall we say, link them together, well, we just have a shows at some index is going to access an object, and it's going to make everything a bit more organized. I'll sort of draw, or I'll show the image of how you want to look at it in a second, but that's how you want to have this set up. So the functions we're going to need to write, the first one will be populate lists, and in main, of course, you're going to prompt the user for an input file and open a file stream with it. And then you're going to basically pass that file stream into this function along with this venue types array. And you're going to populate your array. Let's go ahead and go to an image of how we can visualize how this is all going to work. So it's going to be a complete light themed video because I think I've seen like some students have a hard time being able to read dark theme. I guess if you're a dark theme person, light theme might kind of burn your eyes for a little bit, but at least you can read it. So you can at least read the contents on this video. So I mean, it burns for you a little bit, but then at least people who have a hard time reading the dark theme, at least they'll be able to read it, I suppose, is what I'm trying to do here. And I don't want to make two different videos, so I guess this is the only option. So it hurts me too, actually, because I'm looking at the screen right now along with you. So anyway, here's our structure. To look at this, it's going to be a shows array, and each element, so show 0, is going to be this entire box right here. It's going to be just one venue type object. Shows 1, shows 2 is just going to be entire object. And this entire object right here has a name field, this array of 5 elements for each cost, and then we're going to have true for all of the elements in the available seats array. So scrolling down here for a second, basically to read from the file, so we have in file shows 0.name. So this first string that's in the file fairy show gets stored into shows 0.name. Well, what is shows 0.name? Well, going back up in our image, shows index 0 is going to be this entire block right here. Maybe I'll highlight this. I'll highlight this in gold. Does gold work? Yeah, gold works. I'm going to highlight this whole thing in gold. It's going to be this object right here. That's going to be shows 0. It's just that object. And then shows 0 dot fairy show means, or sorry, dot name means I want to access this field right here, which is that string stored inside of this. I guess it is. I think the gold can be seeable. So anyway, basically we're going to assign fairy show into the name field of this object. And of course, I want to read these 5 numbers from this file. Well, I can look at this, say in file show 0.seatCost 0, and in file show 0.seatCost 1. And you may have to do this a few more times. So a loop right here is going to work. So you can think of it as this index, these zeros right here. I'm going to use violet. This is going to be basically going to be your I index. course that had to happen. And this is going to be a j index of some sort. So you can kind of see how the I and j works. You can kind of maybe see how this is sort of similar to that parallel array structure, but a bit more organized though. So it's going to store essentially first number into fairy show 0 at fairy show 0 dot cost of show 0 will be this field. And then we're going to have the following. We can see from the earlier example right here, or from the write-up over here, show 0 dot seed cost 1. So show 0 dot seed cost 1. So this is show 0 dot seed cost 1, index 1 of our seed cost arrays right there. It'll store 39.15 right there, and so forth. After reading the last three, then we have to go to each index. So show 0 dot available seeds index 0, assign it equal to true, and then shows index 0 dot available seeds index 1 would be this field. So I didn't put the array brackets here, unfortunately, but hopefully you can. This is index 0, index 1, index 2. Hopefully you can visualize that. So you want to basically get this structure. So you want to have this, which I'll kind of scroll through. This is what you want to end up having. Okay, that's what populate lists function is supposed to do. Okay, moving along. Well, output shows. Yeah, so I'm using a const reference parameter. So remember, arrays are path reference always. I put a constant in front, which makes it so you can't modify it. So of course, just like for last assignment, you want to output this venues. This is going to output that top heading. Remember that. And then you want to go ahead and output. So you want to use a for loop to go through each show. Output shows I.name, and then have a loop that goes through each element of this array. So you want to output each of these one at a time using an array that will iterate through this seed costs. But of course, remember, you want to first check the value here. So it is kind of a little bit like having a parallel array once again, because well, it shows 0 dot if show 0 dot available seed 0 contains true, then output show 0 dot seed cost 0. If let's say we had a false right here instead, let's say we had a false right there, then we first look at show 0 dot available seeds index 1. If it contains false, then don't output this, just output the X to the screen instead. Just same kind of logic. So I can kind of move past that because there's not much more to say about that. I mean, it's not much different from the last assignment. And then any available seeds, yeah, same idea. You pass the entire structure to this function, and you just go through. And if any one of these, if you found at least one true, return true, which means there is at least one available seed. But if every one of these, if all of these, you have to iterate through every single show and go through every single available seeds, and like this, if every one of these contains false, that obviously returns false. But if at some point you see a true somewhere, you can stop and return true immediately because, well, there has to at least be one seed. So, kind of a simple nested for loop right there. You have to iterate through each element of the available seeds array, but of course you have to iterate through every element of this shows array as well. So hopefully, that wasn't too bad, but I'll skip past the rest of this because there's not much more to say about this part. Int validate choice. So just like for the last assignment, you pass in a string s, and you have to go through each element of this array one by one. So show 0 dot name. If it's not equal to s, okay, then shows 1 dot name. Check that, then check this, one by one. Once you find a match, return the index of this shows array where that name was found. If it's not found, they return -1, which means that you did not find this element in the array. Moving along, book a seat. I mean, very similar idea to the last assignment. So once again, you pass in available seats and seat cost and char choice. This is actually very interesting. So why am I not passing in the entire, what's it called, the entire shows array? Well, let me go ahead and just give you a little bit of an idea here. I'm going to write this here in the PDF, actually. Let me give you an idea of what I mean by this. So suppose I have int found index equals, I think it's called validate choice. Validate choice. I pass in shows. I pass in some string. So obviously in main, I read in some value from the user, some string. I'm going to pass that in here, and it returns back some index. So in book seat, so I'm just going to go ahead and just say for now, I'm going to say C for right now. If I call book seat, and I pass in shows found index, my mistake, found index. Dot, let's see, I think it's dot available seats. I mean, at this point, what am I passing into this function? What's being passed in right there? Does it actually match the function prototype? I pass in shows found index dot seed costs. What am I passing in? Let's look at this picture for a second. So shows found index available seats. Well, this red box right there is available seats. So in fact, we're passing an array into this function. Right? Oh, sorry, this is the seat cost. I'm sorry. But the available seats is this green array right below. We're passing this entire array into that function because remember, shows at some index dot seat costs is going to be an entire array. I'm passing an array into this function, aren't I? If I say shows at index 0, why not? Dot available seats, I'm passing in an entire array of booleans into this function. So just think about that for a little bit. That's all we're doing right there. So it's not being the PDF, but I guess it's in the video. So I'm going to erase this part. I'm not going to save my PDF with this on there. I just want to put that there just like that. The logic here is the same as it was for the other assignment. If they pass in C, you have to iterate through this array and find the seat that has the cheapest cost that's still available, and then mark that location. So let's say, for example, if I put in C over here, obviously 10 is the cheapest seat available. So I'm going to return 10. I'm going to set this to false, because from now on, it's not going to look this up. If I find the cheapest again, the next cheapest seat on index 0 would obviously be 39.15. So all you have to do is iterate through this array and first find the first element that is available. Let's say, for example, let's just say I had a false over here. Let's say these two are both, let's say these are already booked. Let's say, right? Then when we want to iterate and find the smallest, then the first non-false would be right here. And you're going to set this as your minimum, and you're going to traverse from that point on and try to see if there's anything smaller than 10. Now, obviously, in this case, there isn't, but you get the idea. Let's say, for example, if the first element was false, then this is going to be your first cheapest element. And of course, you're going to have to iterate through the rest of the elements, iterate to this element next, and so forth until you reach the end. And of course, you want to update your min as you go along. It's just a standard find min operation. So that's that. Let's go back to our PDF. And of course, if they pass in that's not a character C, this will convert it into a column index. We want to make sure this index is within range. If it's out of range, return 0. If let's say the index, let's say whatever column you compute, let's say if that position already contains a false, then the user is trying to book something that's not available, return a 0 as well. To return a 0, if either the index is out of bounds or the column chosen by the user it's already been sold, so it contains a false at that position, at that index of the available seats array, return 0.0, return a 0, which means that you could not book a seat. And I think that's the basic functions. And of course, recommended functions, of course, keep going in all caps. I mean, you don't have to have these, but they can be very helpful to use those. And then, of course, the rest of the main really is the same exact main like from before, except, you're passing in your struct arrays instead, but really the same exact code. So you have to modify it. You have to change it main up a little bit because you have to make sure it works for structs, but really there's not a whole lot of logical changes to make here. So nothing too bad. So just same. So, you're going to take your assignment 10, and if it works, you're going to basically take assignment 10 and just, modify, not the logic, but modify how things are stored and retrieved. That's all you're going to modify. So really, a pretty fair to create assignment. So it will take some time, but it's not really going to be anything that will take you a lot of time, of course. Since we're close to the end of the semester, I kind of feel that, it's appropriate to have a small, I guess end of a semester dessert, I suppose. I mean, this whole semester was one big main course, and now we have our dessert, which will be assignment 11. That's a good analogy to use. Desserts are nice. And really, it's the same, same logic, same exact output. So I didn't modify this at all because I didn't really need to. It's the same stuff here. So, yeah. So anyway, the code grade will, of course, check with this one. There's be a few other test cases I'll use, but the same test cases, to be honest, like from assignment 10. So if your assignment 9 worked, or assignment 10, worked, this one shouldn't be too hard to write. And of course, I'm going to put a video in later on, but this video was actually done after the PDF, so I'm going to put the video link here at the end. But of course, you probably already, if you're watching this video, you already got the video, but I'll link the video here anyway. So it's a pretty short video on this, but because it was not much extra to cover, assignment 10 video had all the actual, heavy lifting there. This is really just kind of the assignment 11 version of this. Anyway, that's that. So it's their final extra credit assignment. So anyway, that's that. Thanks for watching. Take care, and till next time.